we used to get, I used to be calling our people all the time to actually do more to fix the house and stuff. So, but occasionally we get more in the road. But I wish I
I want to start off by thanking everyone. Coming, especially those who travel a long way to be here. I know that Mom appreciated it, and I know that I appreciate it, and my brothers and sisters appreciate it. Tonight we want to honor Mom in several different ways. And one of the ways is I have some things that I want to talk about, and I know, for instance, that Diane has a poem that she has written and we hope that others of you who knew mine have something that they might want to say about her. Would certainly do that. And if you can't hear me, I encourage you to move up to the front. Can we turn it up a little loud? Is that better? Okay, let me get started here. We have a mountain about 500 yards west of our house, and Diane and I like to climb from time to time for our morning exercise. It isn't a large mountain, but the elevation changes rapidly, and it's a good way to get your heart rate up. It's a difficult mountain to climb quickly, and it's certainly beyond any walk that Mom could have done in the last couple of years, due to her failing heart. I felt Mom's presence the morning after she died at the top of that mountain. And now, in the words of Paul Harvey, let me tell you the rest of the story. Mom was born on either June 15th or June 17th in 1918. She celebrated her birthday for many years on the 17th. But not long ago, we came across a document that said she was born on the 15th. You would think that she would have known for sure because my sister Pat was born on the 15th. But Mom was never too concerned about details. The favorite phrase to me when I would mention something about the importance of a correct date, or the proper clothes to wear, or the proper things to say, would be, "Oh, that's so silly." As we try to settle her estate, we're dealing with two different Social Security numbers. Sometimes she would use 56 as the two middle numbers, and sometimes she would use 66. A few months ago, I called Mom on the phone and identified myself as an agent for the IRS. I explained to her that I was checking on back taxes and noticed that she hadn't sent in her return last year. There was dead silence on the other end of the phone. And finally, in a meek voice, she said, "They told me I didn't have to file returns anymore because I'm so old." I don't know who they are, but I hope they let me know when I can stop filing returns. My favorite memories of Mom are the many trips we took together to the cabin. She would walk in the door, put down her bag, and immediately start cooking and cleaning. The stove would get disassembled and cleaned, and then she'd start cooking something. The refrigerator would get cleaned, and the front porch would be swept. When those chores were complete, she'd be ready for a nice walk, or possibly painting the outside of the cabin. She was much younger then, only 80. So the 7,000-foot elevation had no real effect on her. At the end of the day, when I was completely worn out, she'd go inside and prepare dinner. I had no idea just how independent she was. She bought and sold cars on her own, purchased and sold the trailer she lived in on her own, decided when it was time to move into Glencroft on her own, decided when it was time to quit driving on her own, and then went about planning every detail of her future so she didn't impose on anyone as she aged. She paid for her burial plot, the viewing services you're attending today, and the burial that will take place tomorrow. Mom felt having a family was more important than having a career. She was not impressed in the least by women that went to college. She loved babies and felt that women that chose a career over staying home made a poor choice. She walked her talk by raising 8 of her own children, taking in 2 foster children, and babysitting countless nieces, nephews, and grandchildren. Mom was as strong spiritually as she was physically, and we passed many of the miles away traveling back and forth to the cabin arguing about religion. I would take the stand that organized religion just didn't make a lot of sense. And she would argue against abortion, instant gratification, and the influence that those things had on young people. It was Billy Graham who said, and I quote, "Only God himself fully appreciates the influence of a Christian mother and the molding of character in her children." There was a clear line for her between right and wrong, and she felt that crossing that line would mean paying a price. St. Augustine said, and I quote, "Faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe." Mom would often say to me during our discussions, "Oh, ye of little faith." She didn't say that in a mean way, but rather to convince her doubting Thomas' son that sometimes you just have to believe. I tried hard to come up with great arguments to convince her I was right, but her faith never wavered. In the last couple of years, the discussions about religion turned more into just discussions of dying and of what comes after. Mom's physical strength was beginning to decline, and her trips to the cabin stopped. Judy began to spend many hours with Mom and cared for her diligently. Now let's go back to where the story started. Remember the mountain? I felt Mom's presence. I felt she was watching me. As I was looking up at the top, I got goosebumps. For some crazy reason, I started to smile, even though I was out of breath. She wasn't just watching. She was laughing. She was laughing at my short, stubby legs and fat belly as I was huffing and puffing, trying to work my way up the trail that she had just traversed in a millisecond. It was a wonderful laugh, and it gave me a sense of utopia. It was her way of telling me what I've been waiting to hear for over a year now. She is free. She is stronger than I am. She can walk further than I can, and she can get to places faster than I can. She wanted me to know that she was free of a body that had served her well for many years, that had finally worn out. She sat at the top on a rock in her flowered blue dress and waited patiently as I worked my way up. She had one more thing she wanted me to do for her. Now you would think that my story might end there, but it doesn't. Mom has asked me to speak for her on several occasions, and tonight as she lay in rest beside me, I'm speaking for her for the last time. She wanted me to take time out from her memorial to thank Judy. She wanted you to know, Judy, that you became a special friend to her because of the way you cared for her. She wanted you to know how happy she was each time you took her shopping and out for lunch. Every time I mentioned your name to her, she smiled. She was aware of the stress you went through not being able to care for her the last few weeks of her life. In the last 12 months, I found the quickest way to cheer Mom up was to talk about something she could do for you. She wants you to know that she loves you and is looking out for you now as you've been doing for her over the last few years. She wanted you to know that you were a friend. She confided in you and had a special place in her heart just for you. In conclusion, I want to say that I started missing Mom the day she died. She was a treasure to have, and I will always miss her. No more phone messages, no more pinching my cheeks, or hugs so strong that my glasses get bent. Those times are gone forever. Her journey is over, and she's where she wants to be. I love you, Mom, and hope that heaven knows just how lucky they are that you decided to join them. Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? I only met Irene 3 years ago, but I'll never forget the first thing she said to me. She said, "Hi, Diane. Oh, you have black hair. I love black hair." And then she hugged me. She and Judy had come to the house on Campobello to meet me. I was nervous, of course, but from that first hug, Irene had me. I always thought of her spunkiness. She was lively and strong, and I was just amazed by her. I loved her candied sweet potatoes, and she liked my chili. She was just happy to be around whenever there was a gathering, and just loved the little ones. She had a particular fondness for my own mother, who has Alzheimer's disease. She would sit and visit with my mother and never minded repeating the same answers to the same questions over and over. It was my privilege to know your mom, your grandmother, your sister, and your friend. I would like to read a poem about her life. What do you see when you look at me? An old woman with faraway eyes, who cannot eat her food and makes no reply, who then says, nothing tastes good, by and by, and seems not to notice the things that we do, and forever is talking of things just she knew, who resisting or not lets us do as we will, bathing and feeding, a long day to fill. Is that what you're seeing? Is it me that you see? Then open your eyes, my children, you're not looking at me. I'll tell you who I am as I sit here so still. I will do as you want and take one more pill. I'm a small child of 10, with a mother and father, and brothers and sisters who love one another. Then, a girl in her teens who dances on air, with dreams of the man who answers her prayer. A bride at 20, a husband to love. Sacred vows to remember from God up above. At 21, a mother, a fine daughter to care for. A son would soon follow, and then there were 6 more. The house grew and grew, so they added a floor. At 40, my eldest have grown and are gone, but my man's at my side to see I won't mourn. At 50, once more, babies play round my knees. Once more we know children, my husband and me. 71, sadly, my husband is gone. I look to the future uncertain and long. My children are rearing young ones of their own. I think of the years and the love that I've known. Now an old woman, this last year is not a jewel. Old age should be pleasant. Instead, it is cruel. My body, it crumbles, grace and strength depart. I feel weakness and worry about my tired heart. But inside this old body, a young girl still dwells, and now and again my battered heart swells. I remember the joy, I remember the pain, and I'm loving and living life over again. I think of the years, all too few, gone too fast, and accepting the fact that this earth life won't last. So open your eyes, my children, and see, not a worn old woman. See my wings, I am free.
Anybody else like to come up and try? Or you want to speak from where you're at?
Do this. I'll try. I wrote a few things and threw them all away. And then on the plane, it just sort of came to me that I would talk about the Heller Plan. So, okay. The Heller Clan totaled an even 10, from Mom and Dad to Judy through Ken. Over the years, the family grew, and for Mom and Dad, there was much to do. It was a lot of work, raising 8 kids. But back in those days, that was just what you did. The family changed, many grandchildren arrived, and we all felt great sorrow when Lily died. The years quickly passed, and soon the time came for Mom and Dad to play the retirement game. They sold the house on Cormory Road and headed to Phoenix with a lighter load. The weather was warm, the sun always shined, and the years passed quickly during that time. Dad left us first. It's been 17 years, and we promised to keep Mom from sadness and tears. But Mom made some changes and moved around a bit, finally settling on Glencroft as a home that would fit. The next 15 years were happy indeed, and Mom was always helping her neighbors in need. She spent her days on the go, happy and free, but always had time for you and for me. During the past year, things just weren't the same. Mom's energy was gone. She could barely write her name. Through it all, Mom never forgot, and she would frequently say, "I love you all, a lot." Last Friday morning, Mom called it a day, and on the wings of an angel, she quietly slipped away. Our hearts are heavy, the whole world seems sad, but we take great comfort knowing Mom is with Dad.
That was my sister Rita. This is my daughter Tracie. And that was my wife Diane. I'm sorry for not introducing you.
So, I wrote a poem that I'd like to share with you. Grandma and I walk side by side with love in our hearts and a dance in our stride. Grandma and I stand side by side, baking cookies and making pies. She always said I was the apple of her eye. Grandma and I walk side by side, hand in hand, watching the storm stretch out across the land. Grandma and I stand side by side as we share our dreams, hope, and pride. Grandma and I walk side by side with love in our hearts and tears in our eyes. Grandma and I stand side by side as we say farewell, but not goodbye. Grandma and I are side by side together, as she will be in my heart forever.
Anybody else? Those of you that don't know, this is my brother Dan.
Okay, I gotta try to do this for Mom, even though I didn't bring anything written down. I started to write, and I didn't really realize we were gonna talk today, so I left it all at home. But at risk of sounding like a preacher, I'm gonna ask you to think about a song that I heard a long time ago, and it's called God is Love. It says, God is love. And he who abides in love abides in God, and God in him. It's a real simple song about God, right? Well, think about that as I tell you a little bit here, because in the last couple of months, us kids, the 8 of us, we've been witness to so much love. I don't even know where to begin to tell you, but I'll start by telling you about a visit that Judy recently made to Mom. I was really lucky that I could get to Mom's room before Judy arrived there. she had to be pushed in a wheelchair, right? Mom was asleep at the time that Judy arrived, outside. Bob brought Judy up in the wheelchair. In the meantime, I was with Ma and I woke her up. She was asleep on her bed. I woke her up. I said, Ma, get ready. There's a big surprise coming. Big surprise. And she looked and said, what? I said, a big surprise and it's all good. Don't worry. She said, oh, that's wonderful. She didn't know what I was talking about. But she said, sit me up. So I sat her up on the edge of the bed with her legs hanging over. And I said, Ma, watch the door. And she kept her eyes on the door. Around came Judy in her wheelchair. And the sounds that came from Ma weren't of this world. No one could describe, because it was so much love that it was audible. Leanne was there, Charlie was there, Bob was there. We all witnessed it. You could feel it in the room. Think about the song, okay? You could feel it in the room. I can go back just a little and I can say, Johnny and Corky, when they arrived, when Ma first went into hospice, Johnny and Corky walked into Ma's room and Ma was asleep. They walked up to her bed and they looked down and the tears started coming down. And I looked and it's a vision that will last forever. There's so much love. You could feel it in the room. That's Johnny and Corky. Then came Patty. I don't know where Patty is. I wish she was here with us. Whatever Patty, I don't know what to say. All I can tell you is this. At the end of Ma's life, Patty came to help. And on the last day that Ma was alive, I stood across the bed on one side of Ma with Patty on the other. And I watched Patty hold Ma's face in her hand like this and pet her face and talk to her and clean the stuff from her mouth as Ma was dying. I watched Patty do that with tears and with so much love. And again, think of the song. So much love. You could feel it in the room. Goes on from there. Gary. I watched him on the floor, okay, beside Ma. Ma's in her wheelchair, Gary's on the floor. His head leaning against Ma's shoulder, and he's walking her through photographs of the family on his computer, one after the other, and explaining everything and making sure she remembered. And Ma's looking at Gary more than she is the picture. She's watching, I saw the whole thing. Again, so much love, and all the work that Gary did, it can't be described. It can't be described. Kenny. I watched Kenny and I watched Ma's eyes. Kenny prepared food for Ma while she was in the hospice by cutting little tiny pieces. Real little, so careful, and put them in her mouth so careful. And then he took the coffee and he dumped it back and forth from one cup to the other, back and forth, to make sure nothing would burn, everything would be right. Okay? And Ma's eyes watching Kenny as he did that. Okay? So much love. I can't even describe what I saw. And there's a lot more, but I won't go on. I won't go into too much more. I'll just say this. I got to go a little farther. I think this thing went out. I got to go a little farther. And before I tell you this, in my defense, I want to tell you a little story. Years ago, I saw a photograph. And the photograph was of a bum who was dancing on a railroad track. And the caption underneath said, "Those who could not hear the music thought that he who danced on the track was quite insane." So you might think about that when I tell you this next little thing that happened. Last Friday, a lot like Gary and I haven't talked about this, I got a telephone call. Well, first I was out, we have a little farm, I was on the farm and we were feeding in the morning, it was early. Something told me I needed to go in and call Aunt B. I needed to let Aunt B know how things were going, so I talked to Aunt B and Joanne and Uncle Don and we cried together and I could feel the love all the way from across thousands of miles. I could feel, okay? We got through the conversation and hung up the phone and I went back outside and in a couple of minutes something said, you better go back in. You need to go back in. So I went back in and there was a message on the phone. It was blinking. So I pressed the button and it was from Judy. And Judy said Ma had passed away. So, okay, Ma's finally done with her journey. So I started feeling sorry for myself. And I walked back outside and said, well, I got to finish this work. I got halfway down the field and I picked up my stuff and I all of a sudden felt poke and I looked and there was nothing there. And I thought, well, this is just silly. Poke again. And I looked, still didn't see anything. So then I went like this and here's what I saw. I saw color. I saw blue and I saw purple. I saw red. And it looks like Ma's eyes and Ma's nose and Ma's mouth. And no edges. No edges at all, but just looked right there. Looked like I could see her. And I said, all right, Ma, you made it. That's what I said right out loud. You made it, Ma. And then like inside my heart, I heard her say, I'm free. I'm free. And then she said, I can see everybody, and everybody is with me. And that was it. I felt better. Everything was okay. And so when I say goodbye to Ma now, it's not going to be goodbye to the body that Ma wore out. She said, I wore it out. It's time to put it to rest. She wore it out. And I did it for 90 years. I'm not going to say goodbye, Ma. I'm going to say, bye, Ma. That's what I'm going to say. I hope everybody feels the same way.
Anybody else have anything they want to say about Mom? Okay. This is Lisa and Mark. This is Mom's grandson and his wife.
This is here to support. This is the plan. I'm going to try not to cry. Is it working? Well, I actually kind of joined the family. The first time I met Grandma and Grandpa was back in 1981. It was when Mark and I first met. And it was at the farmhouse over on Waltham. And I just remember the first time going there and seeing every Sunday the whole family with me. And I come from a small family. And just remembering all the little kids and everybody, Grandma and Grandpa, just took me away. Can't try that stuff. I always felt the love from Grandma. I remember the first Christmas that I spent with the family. I didn't plan to come over there. I thought Mom came to visit my family. And we decided to go to Grandma and Grandpa's and everyone was there. Of course, Grandma had gifts for everybody under the tree. And she didn't expect me to be there. So I see her running around the house. And next thing I know, I had left. And I wish I could have dug it out because I still have it today. It's a little snowman. It's just a candle. I don't know where she got it from. I still have that candle today. And I think it's just a silly story. Like I thought you guys might like to hear how much, this want to remodel. I'm sure everybody in the family has heard about the bathroom remodel. She's so proud of the bathroom at our house, and every time I saw her, she'd always mention it. And I guess that's it. Grandma's with Grandpa now, and that, like I said, I look up and just say hi to both of them, and everyone who's lost that's up there. And that's it.
Anyone else? This is Misa, Mom's granddaughter.
I would rather not speak at the microphone. But what I wanted to share with everybody, and Tracie and I were talking about this a while ago, but when I was a little girl, I would spend a lot of time with Grandma. Asked Tracie later, we're about 5 years apart in age. I have a wonderful relationship with Grandmother, and I'm hoping that it's going to continue on. But my best memories are when I was a little girl back in Ohio. This was a long time ago. And every Saturday, we would go shopping. And it was the same thing every Saturday, so I had the same memory. It was donuts. She went to the junk store, I went to the drugstore to look at candy, and we would go to lunch, and then we would go grocery shopping, and then Grandma would pick us up. And I did that, I think, all the time, because I had the same memory. It's very vivid. And later, when we moved to Arizona, Tracie was about that age. She has my same memory, but just in a different place. We went shopping at the Goodwill or whatever junk stores Grandma would go to, and they would have lunch, and they would go to Jack in the Box. But the consistent thing was that Grandma liked the hamburgers with the Thousand Island and onion rings. So she would go somewhere where we would get the onion rings. But I just thought it was funny that I had the same memory when I was a little girl, and then Tracie does. And I think ultimately what that says about Grandma is that she was very predictable. You always knew what you were going to get when you went to Grandma's. Whether it was, for me, the shopping and spending time together, or Sunday dinners, her pancakes. I don't know who's ever eaten her pancakes, but they're really good. Her fried chicken, her mashed potatoes, all the things that she cooked for us and did for us, all of us, all through the years. But I could be up here forever talking about Grandma. We were very close all through until I moved. And she was a wonderful, wonderful person. And I think everybody here and what we're hearing about her here today just goes to signify how wonderful and how loving and what a wonderful mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother she was. And we're all going to miss her. I think we're all going to feel a little bit lost without her, even though we understand that she's in a better place, that eventually we will all be in the same place too. Hopefully not that soon, but eventually we'll all be together again. But in the meantime, I think we're just going to have to deal with missing her, but then knowing how much she meant to all of us, individually and then all together as a family. Thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody want to say anything about Mom? Just one thing I want to say quickly, for you that didn't know Mom as part of her family, she had 8 children. How many grandchildren? 9.
She had, I think it was 26 grandchildren and more. She totaled 70 descendants.
70
We
descendants.
added it up, 70 descendants, and I'm sorry, I forgot. That was supposed to be part of what I wanted to talk about, but there were 70 total.
Anyway, again, we have another hour here, we have a place to wait, so by all means, please continue to visit Mom, and thank you for listening to what we wanted to say about her.